Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, Wilson, aka the Reno Warrior. Super excited today because I got a good friend of mine, Rob Swift, who's really inspired me to start running. And just to give you a little bit of background, I absolutely hate running before. I despised it. It was very uncomfortable, even though I did it. But Rob here has got me to love running now through low heart rate training.
Yep.
Very comfortable, very enjoyable, and there's so many benefits to it. So I got him here today. He's going to talk about the low heart rate training. We'll listen in on his journey. So it's going to be super fun. And we're also going to talk about how to get started with this low heart rate training program. So, Rob,
Yep.
thank you so much for being here.
Good.
Why don't you tell some of the folks a little bit about you? Who are you?
Yeah. So I'm Rob Swift. I live here in Alameda, California, and
Related to Taylor?
she hasn't called me since she got famous.
Oh, okay.
I'm 52, and I guess, and I will say that this low heart rate running thing has been kind of my primary hobby focus, and spending a lot of time in my head for about probably the last 6 or 7 months.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I started out as a runner. I ran in high school. I ran cross country and track, and I was
Cool.
like, pretty good. Good for Alameda anyway, but
Yeah.
never didn't run any state championships or anything like that. And so running for me in high school was something that I did. That was like 40 pounds ago. I wish I could run as fast as I did back then. But then really right after high school, like I went, in college, I ran occasionally, but not, I don't even know if I ran more than once a week, if that. And then, went off, got a job, and then started somewhere around turning 30, realizing that I was putting some pounds back on. Metabolism changes, as does for everybody.
Life happens.
Life happens.
Yeah.
And so I got back into running through a friend who was a member of a running club in San Francisco. So I started running with this running club just basically to get back into it,
Yeah.
and have someplace to go and some people to run with.
Cool.
And it turned out that this was actually really a marathon training club. So after you spend a lot of time with people who are training for marathons, and suddenly it went from maybe I should get back into running so I can lose some pounds, to be like, well, maybe I should be training for a marathon too. But
Okay.
I will say what I remember from getting back into it was just how much everything started to hurt.
Oh, good.
Everything hurt. Like it was like I felt as if getting back into running was getting back into the pain cave or whatever. So it would start with your feet, went up my ankles, then my knees would hurt, and then my hips would hurt, and then you get body aches.
It's completely uncomfortable. I mean, that's why I dislike running.
Yeah.
I did it when I had to or I had a point to prove, but I never really enjoyed it. It was
Right.
always very uncomfortable for my lungs and very uncomfortable for my body.
Exactly.
I would look at it as torture.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But let's scale it back a little bit. I mean, you say you started in high school?
Yeah.
How'd you even get into running? Was it just a thing to do? or-
Yeah, it was kind of a thing to do. I was really into road bike racing or road bike riding.
In high school too?
In high school too, I had a couple of friends that were really into it, and so this was like the kind of late '80s, and triathlons and Ironmans were kind of becoming a thing, and so I thought, oh, maybe I should try that, and so I was like, well, I'm already doing the cycling. Let me try, and I figured I thought it was going to be skills that I could take from cycling and go right into running because they both use your legs and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's not at all. It's not at all the same thing.
No, it's not.
I don't remember being in as much pain as a high school runner as I did later on. But I think, what you
Age.
say, age is it. That's true too. But what you're experiencing is exactly what I hear from lots of people, which is like, do you like running? No, I hate running. So why do you hate running? Oh, because it hurts. And one, it hurts.
Yeah.
And two, I can't do it for very long. So the hurt comes on really fast.
No, that's one of the biggest
Yeah.
deterrent of running.
Mm-hmm.
Here at the gym that we have here is when I talk to folks about running, that is the number one thing.
Right.
I don't like it. It's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult, and so it deters so many people. But there's so many great benefits for
Right.
running. So did you?
And so what I was going to say to that is that whole feeling of like your lungs are burning, your chest hurts, and I just have to stop. So that's not running. That's racing. And if you're feeling that, you're not ready for racing yet. Right?
That
That's
right
something
there.
that didn't occur to me until I learned this.
We're gonna have to
much
clip
later.
that.
Yeah.
It's
That's-
not you're not running. You're racing.
Yeah, if you're feeling that, then you're racing.
Okay.
And you have to build to that. You have to train for that. And
Okay.
so then that wider that base can become, then the higher your peak will come.
Okay, so if that's racing where you're
Yeah.
completely uncomfortable and
Yeah.
you're hurt everywhere, what's running?
So running. So let me. Yes, I'll tell you one more thing. So after I started running with that marathon team or the running group, I generally did pretty well.
Yeah.
But I ran the same way during that time as we did in high school, which is like whatever the workout is, you run it as fast as you can.
Yeah.
If it's 5 miles, you run the 5 miles as fast as you can. If it's 20 miles or 18 miles, you try to run that as fast as you can. And the way and your ability to do that and how well you feel when you're doing that translates directly into how well you feel as a runner. If I can run this fast, then I am a good runner, then I feel good about myself.
Yeah.
But what I have learned, so then what happens is, as I even started coming to the gym a few years ago, I had noticed I had done my last marathon like 12 years ago, and I was just then a recreational runner, but it was my primary means of exercise. So I was trying to do it like as often as I can, and by going out and running as fast as I can for however far I could, I found that I was actually running less and less. Right, so I was running like 4 miles, but I was having to take a walk break like every mile because I was exhausting myself. I was essentially racing.
You were racing.
I was racing. And I would have to take the next day off because I was really sore. And when I turned 48, I was thinking like, hey, you know what? I always wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon.
Boston,
So you
okay.
have to run a certain pace based on your age and your gender and things like that. So I said, like, I've got 2 years, right? Let me try to qualify as a 50-year-old because that's when you get a little break. Every 5 years,
Yeah.
your qualifying time
Okay.
gets a little bit easier, right? And so I approached this very, I thought scientifically. I found a coach who was an older woman runner who was very accomplished.
Yeah.
I was like, great. She's not 20. She doesn't expect me to be 20. And I was like, let's jump right in. I need a 2-year plan to qualify for Boston. And I was hurt within the first 2 workouts
Because you were racing.
because I was racing.
Bam.
Yeah. So I did whatever she told me to do, and I ran everything I could as fast as I could. My plantar fasciitis
Everything
flew
started
up,
acting up.
ankles started hurting up. I was like, I had to wear a boot because I would just wake up in the middle of the night like my ankles had been sprained or something
Yeah.
like that. And so it was debilitating
Yeah.
and very depressing. And
No,
so
yeah, I mean, I get it. Now you sound like everybody else
Yeah.
when they're thinking about running.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
again, let's take it back
Okay.
to when you first started running. You kind of thought that running would be complementary to cycling.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you started running. And did you ran through high school?
Mm-hmm.
Did you run through college? And then
I ran occasionally in college, but not in any organized way. Not even multiple times a week.
so throughout your correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
There was like a 12-year break. You said.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would say like from college and then entering the workforce for about another 4 or 5
Yeah.
years. I worked overseas. I was in India for a while, so that was not a great place just from a from an infrastructure place
Yeah, for
to
runs,
do
yeah.
long runs. So I didn't really do anything. So I took about I would take about an 8-year break
8-year
before
break.
trying to get back into it.
And how many races have you ran throughout your whole running career?
I have done
Everything.
Oh, everything.
Like
Everything?
5Ks, 10Ks, marathons.
Oh, I
all
don't know that. Well, marathons.
there,
Yeah,
approximately.
I've done 5 marathons, I think.
5 marathons.
Yeah, and the last one being 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah,
And were all those marathons kind of spaced apart?
They were kind of clumped in the 2 or 3 years that I was with this running group.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was within 2-3 years. And
Right.
when did I'm trying to figure out that timeline again.
Yeah.
Ran in high school, ran a little bit in college, recreationally.
Yeah.
Became an adult. Life happens, and about an 8-year span, then you started picking it up again.
Right.
And
right.
you started picking up again just because that you wanted to get in shape again.
Get back in shape. I was getting chunky, and I felt like, and I
all of
wasn't
us.
doing anything else. Like I didn't have any other sports that I was playing too. So I wanted to get back into what I knew.
So what did that look like? What did you start off right away going into did you just like, let's go 5 miles, let's test it out? Like, how'd you
Basically, yeah. I mean, and because I felt like at that time that I could just go back and be a high school runner again. Like it would just naturally come right back.
Yeah.
And to some degree, some of it did, but it was really just I was running 2 or 3 times a week by myself, and then in the weekends in San Francisco. And they had us on a plan. And then once you start running on a on a training plan, then there's something to do pretty much every day.
And how long before you got back into it did you? I mean, you joined the club.
Mm-hmm.
How long after you joined the club, or how long were you running before you started? Well, first off, getting into the marathon. How long was that?
I was probably about 6 to 9 months.
Just within 6 to 9 months. You're like
6 to
"All right."
9 months. Yeah, with about 6 months, I was like, maybe if everybody around me is training, maybe I should start training too.
How old were you then?
Oh, 30? I think it was 30. Yeah.
So you still have some youth in you, and you're able to just.
I hope I still have some youth in me.
Well,
but yes,
yeah. No. Well, I mean, okay.
Yeah, they were young bones.
6 to 9 months. So you went from, I'm still working, and then within 9 months, I mean, you said just go ahead and start running. Then boom, within 9 months,
Was ready to train for it. Yeah.
Oh, you're ready to train for it in
Yeah.
9 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long before you started running did you actually do that marathon?
I'm gonna have to say it was probably within a year to a year and a half from when I first started doing it with them. Yeah.
Now, when you went into that training, was it also just racing, just running to your uncomfortable, and hopefully got more comfortable?
I mean, that
over
was
time?
it. It was just like you had a schedule, and whatever the workout was, you ran it as fast as you could maintain for the distance that you were going.
Okay.
And so,
And throughout that time that you were in that club, you ran a total of 4 marathons?
yeah, I think I ran San Francisco twice. I ran Big Sur once. I've done Oakland once. I think that's it. Maybe did Oakland twice.
And that was in the span of how long?
That was in about, I would say over probably 8 years. I ran
8
my
years.
last marathon basically the weekend of my 40th birthday.
The weekend of your 40th birthday.
Yeah, that was the last one. It was Oakland.
Did it hurt?
It hurt. It hurt. I went in with like these great plans. I had a time goal, and I was staying with a pace group. They have the sign that says,
Yeah.
stick with me if you want to run this particular pace."
Yeah.
I ran the first half with that group, and I just felt like it was all gone. Was on absolute borrowed time. I had nothing left.
Empty the gas tank.
Emptied the gas tank, but then kind of I finished, recovered, and then just like was just, one foot in for the other, just grinding out.
So you had about so that stint from starting off to that last marathon, about 10 years spent, 30
Yeah.
to 40, right?
Yeah, I had about a good 10 years.
And you did a handful of marathons during that time. What was the training like? Was it again just racing, just go, and hopefully it'd get more comfortable, or did you have coaches or was it just the group? Or
Yeah.
talk about your training.
Yeah, the training back then, and just like if you look online for a marathon training guide, you kind of have a date in mind. You work your way backwards, and usually it's about a 4-month, 3 to 4 months is about what people like to do. 4 months gives you about 16 weeks of preparation, and you just basically slowly work your long run weekend up. Until you get to 8s, then 10s, then 12s, and 14s. You back off 10s, 12s, 14s. You back off, but you do end up getting into like the 20s for a couple of weeks in a row. Some people will even do an entire marathon just to let them know or mentally know that they're going to finish. I think I would usually peak out at about 22 to 24 in those training races, and then during the week, you do it probably 2 or 3 other times, like 5 or 6 miles at a time.
Now, was the training and doing those marathons, I'm just trying to get in where your mind was. Was it like, oh, this is fun, let's go ahead and do this? Or was it just like, I'm going to try to do this because I want to prove something to myself? Or was it torturous the whole time? Did you enjoy it? Or
It was all of those things. It really was. I mean, it was feeling, and when you started getting, I'd never run that long before. So when you start getting up into the high mileage, there is something like, wow, look, I ran 20 miles this morning and I'm having breakfast now. And so it was something that I was proving to myself. I really enjoyed the company of running with a lot of other people. I made great friends that I'm still very much in contact with. And it was feeling good that my weight was coming down, and I was able to maintain. I was able to run with this group at this speed. But there were times that I would go through cycles of injury that would kind of come and go. But that was just kind of how every runner is. Like when you hang out with a bunch of runners, you're going to start talking about running, and you're going to start talking about your injuries. And the nice thing, or one of the best things that's happened in this last 6 months, is I don't have to. What I'm talking about is not being injured anymore.
Yeah, no, it seems to be always a topic of conversations with runners. When I talk to other runners, it's about, I got to tape up my knee, I got to put some KT tape here, just everything. So,
Ice, foam rollers, like all that stuff.
Yeah. So that last marathon that you ran at 40.
Yep.
After that, you just kind of like, all right, let's back off a little bit, or
After that, and that was one of yes. After 40, well, my son was about to be born. So though I had Ashwin was born, I think, when I was 42. So that took time away from doing a lot of training. But really, I had a time goal that I was trying to hit. I didn't get anywhere near it, and even that time goal was a lot slower than a Boston qualifying time. And so at some point, I just like, what's the point of this anyway? Like it's really hard. It takes forever. I don't have enough time. I'd rather be home with my new kid and my wife and things like that. I will just maintain and just be like a kind of a regular runner who just goes out a couple times a week and maybe once on the weekends and maintains. And what I had been finding is in the last few years, like that maintaining part was getting harder and harder. Like so, I would have to walk every mile to like rest. I was getting sore all the time. When I tried that, when I tried it again when I was 48 to do that 2-year program to try to qualify as a 50-year-old, I had to drop out within. We would go on. I would get injured and I'd come back, and I'd get injured and I'd come back, and so after about I think maybe 4 or 5 months working with this coach, I was like, I'm just gonna hang it up.
Yeah.
Like this is I don't see any improvement. All I see is grinding down and doing
everything's
worse.
wilting away and just hurting.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily where you ran your last marathon where you were just like, I'm going to hang it up. It just kind of circumstances dictated it, and you're just like, you know what, my body's kind of hurting from it anyway, so you just kind of backed off.
Right.
Throughout that time, that whole career of your running career from 30 to 40, did you always have in the back of your mind you wanted to do Boston eventually at one point?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's been something that's just back.
So first of all, when you start hanging around with people who train for a marathon, you suddenly want to train for a marathon.
Yeah.
And then when you start having people start talking about qualifying and making like a BQ time, a Boston qualifying time, like getting that BQ, and you're just like, well, I should be able to get
So that's
BQ.
a thing.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so just for people who's listening, can you explain why Boston Marathon is such a big deal?
I think the main goal, the main reason why it's such a big deal for people who do run marathons is you can't just sign up and go. Right? You can't just show up at the starting line of the Boston Marathon. You have to run a prior marathon and beat a specific time for your gender and your age, and that allows you to qualify. And then if you just make that, I think I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think that for a 40-year-old, for a 50-year-old, when I was looking at it, I believe the qualifying time was 3 hours 30 minutes. I'm probably wrong, but let's just say it's 3:30. But just making 3:29:59 doesn't mean you're actually going to get in, because they take everybody who's qualified, and then based on how many people they can allow into the race, they start with the fastest and they work toward.
So if you're towards the end and there's a lot of people.
Yeah, if you're 3:59:59, you're probably not going to make it. I think what I heard last year is you had to be at least a few minutes faster than the minimum qualifying time to get in because it's so popular.
Wow.
Right. And so I think the big deal for Boston, it's one of the U.S. national, it's one of the majors that consider the majors of sort of like the world marathoning stuff, along with like London and Tokyo and Berlin and all these. And you got to qualify. So when your friend, and I had 2 friends qualify, and I was like,
So all of this has been festering over your head, and you kind of hung it up at 40.
Yeah.
Still back there, though. That dream's still back there.
It was still, and I feel like, well, maybe if I can just keep running, maybe I'll just get so old that the time will meet me. Like I'll be the 80-year-old guy who's like still running, and then finally I'll
But the qualifiers for 80 years old.
Yeah, the qualifying gets easier and easier, right?
Yeah.
So it'll eventually meet me.
So between 40 and you had this idea at 48 that you're going to qualify for the 50.
I would try to qualify. I train to be able to qualify at 50. Yeah.
So that dream was just in the back of your mind the whole time, and you were a casual runner throughout. After
I was running 2 or 3 times. I was running 3 to 4 times a week since my 40s, probably.
3 or 4 times a week. Did you ever think, like you were saying, as you were running, the 4 miles that you're running casually, where you have to walk a mile, things like that. Was that getting you pretty discouraging?
Yeah, so in this last year or so before I started coming to the gym, I realized I just didn't feel like I was getting any better. And if anything, it felt like these short little runs I'm doing are getting harder and harder. Because again, I would put on the shoes, I'd get out there, and I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's see how far we're going to go today.
Yeah.
And I tried to run as fast as I could, given the time the distance that I thought I was going to get there, and it just felt harder and harder. And I was having to walk more and more. I was cutting mileage. So I was only going 3 or 4, depending on how my hips felt, or my mostly my lungs.
Yeah.
Because I was racing.
Was Boston kind of fading away at that point?
Oh yeah, I mean Boston was but at that point, I'd already tried and failed spectacularly with the Boston 50 program.
Yeah.
and-
Just FYI to everybody who's listening, when Rob's talking about starting here at the gym, we didn't mention this, but the gym background over here, me and Rob were, Rob works out here at the gym, the Mission HQ. This is where we all train. So FYI.
Great place to be.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I just felt like I was getting worse and worse. Nothing was getting better. I had been so long since I had any kind of athletic breakthrough, oh, this was a really great run today, or I felt really good. If anything, it was just I'm still out here. All I can do, the only thing that I can get from this is the fact that I'm still out here and I haven't totally quit.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I honestly didn't think that I ever would just totally quit, but I just was really missing feeling like I was improving at all. I was just holding on. And that 10K probably was almost the nail in the coffin.
Oh, we're going to
And we'll
talk about that story
Yeah.
for sure. The tale of two 10Ks.
Mm-hmm.
Did you getting into the weight room and joining the gym have anything to do with you trying to get stronger for running?
Not stronger for running, but as it was starting to feel like running was getting harder and harder, and I wasn't feeling good about it anymore. I was I really should be doing something else. I mean, it was a lot of things. I was, as I mentioned, I'm 52. I was oh, all this, you're supposed to be building muscle, and it's important when you're aging and all this kind of stuff. Although I feel very strange talking about aging and myself, but I know that it's actually happening.
I'm going to have some questions about strength training and running as well here in a little bit. But let's take it back. So, 40 to 48, you're running casually. Things are getting harder.
Yeah.
Why at 48? Did something spark it to say, all of a sudden at 48, now, you know what? I'm just going to I'm going to train for this at the 50-year-old level, and I'm going to try to make this thing happen. What sparked that again?
I think it was really just I think it's a combination between knowing that at 50 there's a pretty big break for men to go from 45 to 50. They give you another 5+ minutes, which, and I mean every second counts, right? So there was that there, and then I think it was also the fact that I had just been so stagnant in my performance that I felt okay, there's this time break coming up at 50. I'm not doing anything on my own. Let's really commit to this. Let's get a coach. Let's get a program. Let's see if I can do something.
And that's when you got the coach.
And that's when I got I got a coach.
So let's get into that a little bit. At 48, you hired a coach, and now you're really in it.
And
this is serious now.
Yeah. She's got me on a program.
Okay.
Multiple. She's got me on multiple runs a week. Some strength, basic leg strength exercises, a lot of hips and things too. And I was okay, I'm really excited about it. And I had a really good feeling from her. She was an ultra marathoner. She was 50. She was 2 years older than I was at the time, so I was 48. She was probably already 52, something like that. And so I thought, okay, great. We're of a similar mindset, right?
Yeah.
So I'm she doesn't think I'm 20. She's not 20. She knows.
She understands.
Yeah, and she's gone through. She's an ultra runner.
Yeah,
so
she's an endurance athlete for sure.
And trail running and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, and this is nothing against her at all. Sarah was a wonderful coach, but my body just couldn't take it. So
what was the training like that your body couldn't take?
It was just,
racing all the time?
Well, that was me, right? And she was remote, so we were doing this mostly over Zoom and things like that. And so I didn't run with her, but she gave me a program. So on Monday, 6 miles. Tuesday, take it easy, right? Tuesday, or it might be Monday, 6 miles. Tuesday, we're going to do some interval training with some track, so faster, slower. Wednesday, take it easy with 5 or 6 miles, and then long, and long on the weekends. And that's in your long weekend run is supposed to be pretty easy.
Yeah.
But with all of those, every one of those workouts, I wanted to run it as fast as I could. Or I wanted to feel like I'm getting better every time. I'm
Yeah.
getting that I can approach each workout as like something that can be bested. You know.
Probably not the best philosophy for running, is it?
That's what
It
we
worked
all
for you?
do.
Yeah.
That's what 99% of all runners
Okay.
do. You know, I think it's starting to change a bit with this low heart rate thing, which we'll get to. But I think for especially someone who has people who have been running for a while and have trained for multiple races, they see every race as like, today I'm basically reaffirming to myself that I am a runner, that I can run, that I'm going to feel great, I'm going to feel fast, and tomorrow I'll feel even faster.
Yeah.
Now the problem with that, especially as we age, is that if you are racing and not running, it catches up to you.
Okay. So that training that beat you down quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I was within a week. I think I had like injuries in my feet that I had never had before. Ankles were a big pain. My plantar fasciitis was like really sore. And this is all like typical overuse, going too hard, not recovering, like
Pounding that pavement.
Yep.
Joints, everything, right?
Joints, everything. Yeah, that's when I started. So I had changed my shoes. I got like a really fat Hoka's that I'm still in now.
So,
but yeah,
with all of that, how long did that training last?
I don't know if I lasted 6 months with that.
Yeah.
On what was supposed to be a 2-year program, I don't think even made 6 months.
And were you just after that, you're like, you know what?
I was like, well, I had to take at least a couple of months off just to heal.
Recover.
Yeah, just to be able to like walk, you know, and like even walk
So,
regular distances.
At that point, Boston's out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just back to casual running after you healed everything, right?
Yeah.
Were you just kind of convinced that, you know what, maybe I'm done?
I think at that point I was definitely thinking not done with running because I knew
With
I was
the
gonna,
races,
Yeah,
or-
but like, you know, the Boston idea. I mean, it never went away.
Still there.
It's never been like I never thought like I'll never make it, but it did not seem very likely, and it certainly wasn't going to happen in like those 2 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And so
and at that point, yeah, I don't think did I even sign up for like maybe a half marathon or anything after that. No, I think it was just pretty much me and my weekly couple times a week, 3 times a week.
And so all of that right around the 48 mark, and then when you're 48 years old, leading into 50 years old, and you're running again now.
I am running again now.
How many miles are you doing approximately per week?
Well, I am actually training for a marathon now again. So I did 18 yesterday. So
You did 18 yesterday.
I did 18 yesterday.
And you have a marathon coming up in a couple of months, I believe,
March
right?
3rd, Napa.
So now that you beat up your body, you took a couple of months off just to let yourself heal.
Had to, yeah.
You become just a casual runner.
Another guy out there on the street. Yep.
Another guy out there on the street. And what sparked racing again? Or what sparked joining these organized races again?
In 3 words, low heart rate training. Okay, 4 words. Yeah, low heart rate training. Maybe that's 3.
Low heart rate training.
Yeah.
Okay. So that gave you some hope.
Yeah, it really has.
Okay. So was it the desire to run or the desire to race that allowed you to seek out low heart rate training, or did you find low heart rate training and that inspired you to run the races?
It was an absolute accident, and I think maybe we could start the tale of the 2 10Ks. Right?
Okay, let's talk about the
Yeah, so I think I had been working out here for almost a year, maybe almost a year.
Lifting weights, getting yoked, getting jacked. Yep.
yeah, whatever. There was going to be a 5K on Bay Farm, and the gym was going to help with like traffic or whatever it was.
Yeah, we were
like that.
volunteering.
And so here in the gym, I had mentioned to all of you guys that I run during the week too, but it was still again like those 4 miles at a time, walking having to stop and walk and rest and all that kind of stuff. And when this race was coming up, I was like, okay, let's do.
Why not?
I'll do a 10K. 10K. It's been a while, but I'll do this 10K. And I was like, okay, I'm an older, wiser runner now. I'm not going to go out too fast, like all the.
And this is the first race that you've ran in a while, was it?
I may have done it
a couple here and there, but
yeah, I think certainly in a while that I've paid the money, went and did it.
So how did that turn out?
So I was like, I'm going to hold back. I'm not going. My goals really are to not walk.
Okay.
Right. So don't walk. Don't throw up at the end.
Okay.
And let's try to pass some people.
Some good goals.
Right.
Okay.
So I mean,
good.
because at that point, like, you have to scale everything back.
Yeah.
So I went out. Gun goes off. I goes out. I'm trying to hold back. You don't want to like lose it all on the get on the first thing. And I believe that my first 2 or 3 miles were around an 8:30 pace, 8-minute, 30-minute mile. But I will tell you that in mile 2, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm already feeling like I'd really like to take a quick walk here. Okay. Mile 3, it's still, I'm holding in there, but it's like, I really want to take a quick walk. I'm feeling very tired. And this particular 10K has a you have to go around a cone and turn around and come back. So you can't really take that at speed. Yeah. And so what I remember specifically is coming up to that cone and taking that turn and then realizing that like I'm essentially walking now. And I did walk a couple of steps. I was like, this is like what I didn't want to do. I was like, okay, so get back, get back up going. But like, my lungs are hurting, everything's going, and I see a guy ahead of me. It's like, okay, my goal now, I want to pass that guy. Yeah. In this last half, he seemed like I could probably reel him in, but I really had nothing left. I'm only halfway in, so I'm just basically trying to maintain. Yeah. And I'm seeing this guy, and every time I try to even like get one little extra step to speed up, my stomach starts revolting a little bit, and it's like voting against that move. Yep. So I have to fall back, and he's sitting there, and I try to get him, and my stomach gets sick, or it starts to hurt, and my lungs are dying, and I would really like to be walking instead of like doing what I'm doing. And I basically just followed this guy pretty much the entire way back in, was not able to catch him. Did come up with like a sprint at the last minute because you gotta finish. I finished like, let's finish strong. So I did the last like maybe 100-meter sprint across the line. Threw up all over the place when I crossed the line. Whoa! Scared some kids. They're like, "Mommy!" I was like, "Oh God," And I was just like, "God, this is terrible."
So everything you said that you didn't want to do, or that you wanted to do, make sure that you're not going to walk. Make sure that you don't throw up. Here you are, just walking, throwing up.
Yeah, I walked. And I wanted to walk the entire time. I always had a desire. I felt like I needed to walk. I couldn't pass that guy. Yeah. And I threw up across the line. Yeah. Now, sometimes that could be a badge of honor. Like I finished marathons and crossed the line and had felt like that was incredible. And here's the Raiderettes, and came very close to throwing up on the Raiderettes boots. I didn't, but and to some degree, there's a badge of honor of like really just leaving everything on the thing. But that was not this one. That's not what this felt. This felt like this was a terrible race, and I'm still throwing up. Yeah. So I'm slow, it hurts, and I'm throwing up.
I mean that just everything just kind of came crashing down.
It totally did. And so then, I'm thinking like what's the point of even calling myself a runner anymore? Because I'm not. I can't even scale down my expectations or what I consider a good race to be, and meet those because I walked. I couldn't pass the guy, and I ended up throwing up for no reason. Right? Well, not for no reason. I ended up like exerting to a point where I had to throw up, and so it just happened within a couple of days. The algorithms on YouTube showed me a video about low heart rate.
Okay. Right before we get into that, I want to just kind of, first off, do you remember your time for that first 10K?
I should look that up. I believe, let me think. So I'm pretty sure I did about 8:30 for the first 2 or 3. And then if I remember, it went like 8:30, 9:30, 10. That's slow, right? I mean, so someone who's racing like 9:30s, like high 9s, a 10 in there. And then I probably got, the sprint, whatever. But like, it was, not great. It was in the 40s for sure.
40s? Okay. Yeah, so let's, before we get into the low heart rate training, I want to fast forward real quick. Okay. The tail of 2 10Ks.
The tail of 2 10Ks.
That last 10K that you just did. Let's talk about that real quick. So that everybody that's listening could have a contrast of where you were until where you ended up at this last 10K. And how far apart was that approximately?
I think it was 4 months, 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months. Okay.
4 or 5 months. Yeah. So I started low heart rate training, which we'll get into. Yeah. And it just so happened that there was going to be another 10K in the exact same place, same course, same thing. The gym was going to help with the traffic or whatever, but this time I went in with like 4 months of low heart rate training underneath my belt, and really not knowing what this was going to be like at all. Because, spoiler, when you are doing low heart rate training, you're running very slow. And we'll get into all that in a bit. So I had not run.
You didn't test your training.
I didn't test. I hadn't done any kind of speed work. I hadn't even run my normal, regular speed in 4 months. And so,
So what was your strategy on this 10K?
This was
next
really
thing?
just like, don't go out too fast. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Don't throw up. Still.
I may have the exact same experience as last time because I have not tested this at all.
Yes.
Let's just see what happens.
Okay.
Right? So gun goes off. I go out. I'm again holding back. You let all the young kids like who are all eager like take off, and then then the high school kids who look like little whippets out there like flying out. I'm not going to chase them. I'm just gonna run my race. And I wanted to think like, okay, I'll start it about that. Let's just start it in an 8:30 and see where we are. And so I ran that first 8:30. Breath's totally in control. Lungs feel great. Legs feel really solid and really strong. Like I felt like I had a base. Like there's a foundation down there.
That's awesome. Okay.
And I've got it right. So mile 1, well, that's feeling pretty good. Mile 2, okay, don't get ahead of myself, don't get over eager. Like this could all end.
Yes.
Mile 2, feeling great.
Okay.
Mile 3, still holding at that pace. And I know that I'm coming up to this like quick turnaround thing, and I see, and one of the things that I did see is that as I'm approaching the turnaround, other people have already turned around, right? So obviously people are in front of me, and I see my neighbor's kid. And I'm like, I've got to beat her.
There we go.
I've got to beat
Goals.
her.
Goals.
There's no way.
Okay.
I've got to beat her.
Little games we play with ourselves when we're running.
So I come to that same turnaround cone, and I take it like it's speed. I take that turn, and I remember this kind of feeling. I get the cone, and I take the turn and lean into it.
Yeah.
And I just come off that line like almost like a sprinter, and I was like, "Wow!"
Major difference from
Oh my God.
walking at the last one. Okay.
Yeah, major difference from like making that turn and just being like, "Well, I've already kind of stopped anyway."
No thoughts of walking at this point.
Oh God, no,
No,
nothing.
okay.
And no feeling about it, like not needing that, thinking that I would need to walk. And so I see my neighbor's daughter like up there, and I was like, "Well, I'm on the tail end now. I just got to get back." Right?
Yeah.
Let's open this up. Let's see what we got. And I had it. I had energy. I had strength. I had power. I had my lungs. I didn't have any pain. Lungs felt strong. My turnover, my cadence was great, and I reeled her in like so. It was like just
crush her,
just easy, just pull it in. And compared to like watching this fat dude from watching the guy that I was watching this last time, and feeling like if I even try to pick him up, I'm gonna throw up right here on the road.
Yeah.
So reeled her in super quick, and just felt like I've got it. Let's just keep going. That was I've got now I'm 2 miles down. How am I feeling now? Where's my lungs? And I think what other 2 miles am I gonna run today? Let's just go and leave it out.
Blast off.
And that's what I did. So I reeled her in, reeled in a bunch of other people, kept feeling strong, kept thinking this is the tale of two. This is an absolutely different race for me. Pulled in a lot of people, came in really fast, sprinted the whole last section, reeled in a couple other people, got a shout out from the MC because I was coming in really quick.
And you placed, you were pretty high ranked.
I was 17th overall.
17th overall. And then for your age group, you were all.
I think I was third, second or third, and then, and there were some fast people. But I mean, if I look back at those times, and I should have remembered what these were, but it was like it was again kind of like 8:30, 8:20, 8:20, 8, 7:50, 7:50.
So you were getting better and better, whereas
better.
before you were getting slower and slower and slower.
What happened before is I was racing before I was ready. So I basically went out and was on borrowed time from about mile 2 to 3. Had an absolutely empty tank, had to take that walk, and then just like basically willed myself toward, just to finish. But it was hell. Where this one I felt like there were wings on my feet.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So right there, you finished you crossed the finish line. You went out and You're like, huh, you put it to the test. What were you thinking?
I was like, this thing it's magic.
Low heart rate training.
Low heart rate training has been magic.
Okay.
So maybe we should get into it.
Yeah,
Let's talk about what it
absolutely.
is.
Let's definitely get
Okay.
into it. So, everybody, you've heard it, the tale of two 10Ks.
Yeah.
Same exact race, same exact course, but two absolutely different race.
Yep.
And you felt like a champ afterwards. The first time you did it, you felt like just crap.
Yep.
All right. So,
Two
first off,
absolutely different runners. Yeah.
first question: what is low heart rate training?
What is low heart rate training? All right, so, it's got if you look around online, it's called a few different things. So it can be called low heart rate training. You'll often hear it called zone 2 in terms like it's this, it's the zone, it's your heart rate zone. That if you go from like one is what we are right here, just sitting here. 5 is if we're like totally all out, everything we've got. 2 is basically the first level that you get.
Slightly elevated heart rate,
Right.
But
Pretty
not
low.
Pretty low.
Pretty low.
Yeah.
And so the idea,
I think I stay at zone 2 when I'm walking.
you might get, you may not even reach zone 2 if you're walking,
okay.
but yeah, you'd be get there. And so the whole idea and the weird magic about this is you run at a very low heart rate, and the cyclists have picked up on this too. This is it. And just to get a little bit back, this is not really a new thing, but for whatever reason, it feels like it has become very popular right now. And I think it's because a lot of people, it's gotten broader attention from a lot of people, from like influencers and some doctors online and sports physicians who are talking about all this. And it seems like it's much more widely spread. But at its basis, what I do is I have a heart rate monitor watch that I run with, and I have an alarm on it for me at 130 beats per minute. And then,
Why 130?
why 103? So basically the program that I'm following for this is to estimate where your zone 2 heart rate is. I mean, you can go to a lab. You can get on
With like a bunch of leads on it.
a bunch of leads, and actually, what they'll do is they put you on a treadmill, and then they crank it up over time. You get it faster and faster over time, and they'll take blood samples, usually from your earlobe,
Oh, really?
and they'll look for a buildup in your lactic acid. So we can talk about lactic in a bit. But a really good approximation for this is 180 minus your age, and so I took 180 minus 50 just to make it round, and so that's 130. What this looks like, though, and this is the strange part, is at 130 beats per minute, I am barely, at least when I started,
Yeah.
I'm like one step above a fast walk. I was running like a 13-minute mile. It is extremely, extremely slow.
13-minute miles.
Yes, even 13 and a half when I very first started.
Okay.
And this is the speed at which like people are going to walk faster than you, or could be walking faster. Like a power walker is going to go faster. It is very. It feels like there's no way that moving this slow is going to help me move fast in any way at all. It just makes no sense at the time.
It's got to do so much to your ego.
Oh
at
my
that
God,
point,
yes.
Because
Yes.
you've been a runner
Yeah.
all your life. And,
There's
or,
stories
you
of
know.
people who don't post their runs to Strava because they don't want their friends to see how slow they're going. Now I'm a man of a certain age. Like
Yeah.
I've shed a lot of ego.
Yeah.
in my years here on Earth, and so you run at a very, very low heart rate. You maintain that heart rate, and that just translates into going very, very slow. Now
Yeah.
here's kind of what the magic happens is, as you are doing this, when I start out at a 13.5-minute mile at 130 beats per minute, over time, that went from 13:30 to 13 to 12:30 to 12. This is over the course of several months. This is not a fast. It's not going to happen.
Well, we're
the next
talking
day.
about you. If we're talking about the tail of 210Ks, that's about a 4-month span.
Yeah, there's in that 4 months, I dropped probably a minute and a half off of that pace. So basically, meaning at the same level of exertion, I am moving faster. And what is essentially happening, and when I ran that race, I was like, how is it that running slow has made me able to run fast? Because it was ridiculously slow. So here I'm going to boil this down as much as I can, and we'll link in the description to some of it.
There you go.
But essentially, at a very low heart rate, so if I'm running at a 13-minute mile and I've got my 130 beats per minute, I'm using my slow twitch muscles, right? Which makes sense. Like you're just kind of popping along as slow twitch muscles. Your body can get fuel from two different sources. One is your body fat, which even like the super skinny Olympic runners will have plenty of body fat, or from sugar, and from glucose and glycogen. So if you're just cruising along at this rate, at this low heart rate, is what's called zone 2, that is at the point where your body is able to run, but is using the most body fat for fuel. And when your body burns body fat, it is actually the best source of energy. So you actually get a lot more energy per sort of like, if you think about per chemical reaction, than you do when you hit sugar. Now, the problem, well, not the problem, one of the things is in order to burn fat, it's sort of a complicated chemical process. It takes a little bit longer. So when you have to sprint, like if a dog starts chasing you or you need to get out of somewhere, your body is not going to turn to fat because it takes too long. It requires oxygen and there's a bunch of those chemical reactions that make it harder. The easy thing that it can do is quickly pull glucose and glycogen out of your cells, the sugar. But as soon as you start turning into sugar, then that's your borrowed time.
I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned that a few times. So your borrowed time is using the sugar because that runs out, right?
Yeah. Two things happen. One, sugar runs out. Mm-hmm. And two, when I'm running at my low heart rate and I'm burning muscle fat, there's always a little bit of glucose that's being used. You're always going to use a little bit, but it's mm-hmm. at that low heart rate is when you're using the maximum amount of fat, the minimum amount of sugar. And when you burn sugar, you create that lactic acid. So everybody knows this. If you start running or you start doing anything high endurance, any of these HIIT workouts, and you feel that burn in your muscles, the burn in your lungs, the burn in your muscles, that's lactate building up that you're not clearing out. Okay. At low heart rates, when you are burning a little bit of sugar, your slow twitch muscles are clearing out the lactate, which is what they're supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do. So your slow twitch muscles are always in charge of clearing the lactate out.
Hence the comfort while doing it.
Which is why you don't really feel, well, you're going so slow, you don't really feel that burn. Oh. When you switch to sugar is when you could start feeling the burn.
Okay.
All right. So a few things are happening when you are training that slow. Because you're spending so much time at that low heart rate, because when you go out, the thing about when you run slow, you can run forever, right? You go out, I would go out for like a 5 or 6 mile run and it would take me an hour plus. But when I got back, I felt like I could just go ahead and do it again, right? Uh-huh. But by spending that hour, I'm essentially, what do we call it when we do something over and over again? I'm training.
Yeah.
I'm training my body to burn fat, right? And get better at it, that chemical process. And I'm training my body to get rid of that lactate because I'm doing it so often, because you're there for an hour, right? That hour is an hour of training. And so what I found then, because those two things are happening, when I went for that second race, you're able to stay in that fat burning range. I could feel it in my body that I was still that I could feel when I was switching to sugar.
Yeah.
And I could back off just a little bit of that pace and feel absolutely great.
Yeah.
And secondly, I didn't get any of that lactic buildup until I was like really at the end, and I was like sprinting like mad, and that's exactly what you would expect to hear because that's when you're racing.
Yeah.
But because I had done all the training and the running, I was then ready and able to race feeling great. So it's those two things, and that's sort of like the weird magic of low heart rate training, where you think like, how could going this slow possibly help me be a better, faster runner? Because you're doing those two things. You are training your body to get more efficient when it burns fat, so you could do it at higher heart rates.
Okay.
And two, you're training your body to clear that lactic acid when you actually do start burning that sugar.
Right. I'm assuming that when you're talking about borrowed time, and once the sugar runs out, because there's a finite amount of that. Mm-hmm. It's probably akin to I've rode my bike to the point where I bonked out. I was on a flat, I couldn't pedal it anymore.
Yeah.
So I ate like a piece of candy. That's bonking out. I mean, that's that borrowed time.
Yep.
How much of that do we have? Like, how long before, do you know?
I mean, it really depends on your exertion level, right? So the classic thing about marathon runners is the marathon is really, as they call it, it's actually two races. There's the 20-mile race, and then there's the 6.2-mile race. And the reason that tends to be like what people talk about is that at 20 is when most people bonk. is when most people have run out of whatever they've got. They've
sugars.
run out of that
Yeah.
sugar, right?
Yeah.
And so then they hit the wall.
And that's where they have to fight
right?
for it.
And that might be when like you're out of sugar and now your body is forced to go back to the relatively less efficient process of burning fat. And that you actually can feel that happening in your body. If you're a sprinter, I could probably sprint all out 400 meters or something like that. But eventually you're constantly fighting between like running out of all your sugar, which you could do at like kind of a medium pace, versus that lactic acid that's going to keep building up and building up and building up, right?
Gotcha.
And it won't get and that's what'll stop you. You feel like you're frying from the inside because you're bathing in acid is what's happening. But if you train at this low heart rate, you are effectively training the mechanism that clears that lactate out.
So you become more efficient with it.
You become more efficient in the sense that you can stay burning fat longer at higher heart rates, and you're just better at it because you've been training. Plus, when you do switch, if you do speed up, like and when you're running in a 10K, you can't go all out from the very beginning. You have to plan your 6.2 miles.
Yeah.
But at some point toward the end, where you're like, okay, we're going to make it. Let's just go. I was able to run a lot faster, and I did not feel as much of that lactate build that certainly I was feeling in that first 10K, where I felt like even if I was just trying to get one step faster, I was feeling the burn in my lungs. I was feeling my stomach going all crazy. And,
so you actually just the training stayed the same, your heart rate stayed the same. You just got stronger with it, just over time with training that way.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what does that training look like? And well, first off, low heart rate training, you can get started even if you're not a runner, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing that, I feel like it's so strange. I don't know how many times in someone's life you get to experience this. Like, I feel like I felt like I know running.
Yeah.
I have run since I ran when I was a teenager. I ran in my 30s. I ran in my 40s. I've done marathons. I've done 10Ks. I've done 5Ks. I know what it is to run.
Okay.
And I know what running feels like, and I know like how I would approach it if I was going to bring in somebody new. And then and I felt to a degree that like people who said they hate running just didn't try hard enough, right? Or we just couldn't take the pain the way
Well,
I could.
I always thought that I didn't like running. It was so uncomfortable because I wasn't willing to go through that discomfort to make it comfortable.
Right.
It's just I think I might have. So there was a point in my life when I was just trying to do the runs, and it was torturous every single time I ran. Yeah. And I just said, I hope this one day that it gets better. It never did, because I'm just trying to blast off. But
and maybe if it could be like, and that's how most people train. So, and the thing I was mentioning is like, I felt like I knew exactly what running was, but yeah, it feels like you can turn some page and like there's a whole new story about running. Like, I would imagine if you've run before and stopped for any reason, and probably you've stopped because it started to hurt or you didn't feel like you're improving at all, you can start up again in this totally approachable, comfortable, except for maybe your ego because you have to go slow, way. And if you have never run in your life or you always felt like there's no way you would be able to, anyone can do this. You could literally start with this low heart rating approach, and it's going to take it will take time, but you will be getting better all the time.
So you rediscovered your love for running through this low heart rate training program.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's get back to the tale of two 10Ks. That second 10K, that 4 months in between. Mm-hmm. What does low heart rate training look like? Was it like I'm just going to go for as long as I can right away while keeping this low heart rate? Is it just going for a couple of miles? Yeah. What did that look like?
So what it looked like the things that changed for me. So one, essentially, I just stay at that heart rate. I've got an alarm on it. I go out, I start running. If it beeps, I slow down, right? And then I can see where I am, and I try to find a level that where I maintain that heart rate. Now, you don't have to have a heart rate watch. The best way, and I heard it described recently online from two kind of zone 2 experts, is if you can have a conversation, if you can run while having a conversation, but the other person knows that you're running, right? So it shouldn't sound like this. Like you
Yeah.
do need to sound like
Yeah.
you're doing a little bit
Yeah.
of work, but so that's a very good way to figure out like what your zone 2 is before you go and buy the watch, if you ever need to. So so training for me looks like going out for my run, going embarrassingly slow to me initially, and I would try to. And what I found I was doing is I was running farther than I was priorly. Because I used to be like I'd do about 4 miles. I was stopping every mile, and then just being like, "This is as far as I want to go. Let's just go home." So I was running farther. It took me a lot longer.
Yeah.
And when I got back from my runs, I felt like I could turn around and just go back and do it again.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's like a cap on it. It's just whatever time allotment you have, because
Right.
it's like walking. You can walk. You can
Right.
walk forever.
Yeah. So the two changes that I immediately was like running more. I could run every day because I didn't have to recover from what I did to myself the day before.
You felt that your joints weren't getting beat up at all.
Not at all. No. In fact, they felt better. And then that's the main thing. I'm running absolutely for the first time in probably my entire life, totally injury free. I'm like my legs have never felt better from toes to hips. I'm like perfectly great. So I mean, so in terms of like how would I start running? So what I've read and heard in some of these zone 2 groups is that after about 90 minutes or so, you're not getting a lot more benefits from that. I mean, if you're training for a marathon, there's different things. Like to train to be a good runner or a good zone 2 runner, after 90 minutes, you've basically you've trained enough of that like fat burning and lactose clearing for the day. If you're you're training for a marathon, then there's the other thing you're training is like being on your feet for a long time. Like if you're going to plan to run like a 3:34 hour marathon, you need to run more than an hour and a half, a couple times a week.
For that 10K, were you running like 7 days a week, or what were you doing?
For that 10K period, I was running probably every day.
Every day.
Yeah, pretty much every day, and that was
Just for time, like an hour at a time.
Yeah, and I would generally go for about an hour-ish.
An hour-ish.
Yeah, about
Okay.
an hour-ish, and I would tend to go try to do it about 6. I would go about 6 miles, and it was like an hour 20, hour 30. So it was a very slow process, but that's what you just go out and keep that heart rate low. And the nice thing is you can do it. You should come back feeling like you could turn around and do it again, no matter how far you go. And the nice thing is you can do it again the next morning.
I think you had told me one time, and I use this a lot when I talk to people about running, is you can talk, but you can't sing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, talk but can't sing.
And that I actually take that to heart when I started doing it too. So you rediscovered your love for running.
Yeah, absolutely.
I discovered my love for running because I absolutely hated it before.
Yeah.
We have a lot of folks here at the gym. We talked to a lot of people about just overall health and wellness, and running has always been a thing of, I wouldn't say a taboo topic, but everybody's like, I'll do the classes, I'll do the weight training, but
I don't want to run.
Yeah, I don't want to run, and so this, I think, is a big eye-opener for a lot of folks where anybody could do it.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of folks here at the gym, we weight train, we do HIIT classes, we do boxing and everything. And when we talk about fitness, it's one of the things that we never really talk about, or people don't want to talk about, it's uncomfortable, is running. So what are some of the best advices that you would have for somebody just starting off with the low heart rate training?
I mean, if you're a brand new runner, I would definitely say start with I wish I knew. I wish I had learned about this a long time ago. I'm very happy. So start with low heart rate. Start with that very conversational pace, and just start. And what I can tell you, which is going to be amazing, is you probably haven't started because you wanted to avoid the pain. Right?
That's 100%.
Yeah, it's all pain.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
People don't say I hate running because I find it boring, or I hate running because it's too difficult.
Yeah.
Like people hate running because it hurts.
So most folks, I would say, if there was a magic button where you can press and they would automatically love running and be good at it, I think the majority of folks would do it. They would press that button.
Yeah, probably. And we should remember, there's plenty of fun articles out there. Like there's theories that running is what made humans human. Fun fact: we are the only species in the world that can run and hold our breath. that can modulate our breathing based on our body. If you look at a cheetah, you know, when it's like running and running, when it's doing this,
It has to breathe.
that's how it's breathing. It's actually breathing with every step. A horse is the same way. Dogs are the same way. Cheetahs are the same way. And so there's just the thought that like our ability to sweat and our ability to modulate our breathing allowed our ancestors in the savannah, when we started looking around for food, to essentially slowly like chase down other animals who would overheat because they can't stop. Or, you know, if they for them to cool down, they would have to stop running. So if we could just keep running, our little tribe together, keep running after the antelope, you know, as long as we keep them moving, they'll just dry up of heat exhaustion. Anyway, a fun little tangent. But I would say start with, you know, read up a little bit on low heart rate training. There's not much to,
Or come see us.
Yeah, great place to start. Just get those shoes on, get your shorts on.
Yeah.
Don't make it too difficult. Stand, you know, keep up and straight. We could have a whole other video about form and things like that. But go out with that conversational pace and go for 10, 12 minutes. Go for 15 minutes. Go for 15 minutes. And just see how you feel. And what you should feel is that you could do another 15 minutes. And that's kind of the miracle, is that if you were never done it before, you'll be surprised that you would be able to do it.
Yeah.
If you have run before and you're thinking you would never be able to do it again because it hurts so much, the hurt goes away. It's slow. For runners who are used to going at a certain speed, it's at the very beginning, it is very, very slow.
I think one of the biggest things that you told me when I started was trust the process.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, because you were talking about chasing folks that were way older than you, but you can't catch up to them. But, you know, it's trust the process and you'll eventually get there. And to put it into context where everybody's listening, when you were talking to me about it, this must have been like 3 or 4 months ago. I think my mile time, just to be comfortable, I started off 16, 17 minutes, somewhere to that effect. And I think if we're really tracking the heart rate, I probably am down at about 12 minutes. And if I'm able to get a little bit, I'm more comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. And I've been running 6, 7 miles at maybe slightly under 10 minutes.
Right.
And it's been very, very comfortable. Just a couple of other quick topics before we wrap up. Side note, strength training and running. That's one of I just wanted to hear your experience with it. A lot of folks is you either strength train or you run. You can't do both. How does that affect your running? And
I had a great time. Before joining the gym, I had really never even been a member of a gym before. I've never lifted weights, never done anything. But I knew that I was looking for something. I was looking for something new. I'd been thinking about it for a long time, and I finally just ended up, doing it and coming in. I can't say that I'm an expert on all things, like how do you balance them? How do you balance?
How about your experience? Has it gotten you strong? Do you think it's okay? Like, from what I'm thinking, my philosophy, I'm thinking, or what I hear from other people, the theory is you strength train, you build too much muscle, you're going to get slower, it's going to be too difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely something like, there's a reason why Schwarzenegger is not also running 10Ks.
Yeah.
There's a point to which you are so large and so heavy, you put on so much more muscle that you're going to get in the way of your running. Yeah. And what I said to you and what I said to Czar, who was training with, was like, when I get to the point that I'm so large that I'm slowing myself down, then we can have a discussion. What I have found more than anything is that I feel a lot more stable now.
Oh, okay.
I felt even before I started the low heart training running, I was still coming into the gym a couple times a week and then also running a couple times a week. And I did find, especially after having done leg exercises for a certain amount of time, it's like I felt more supported.
Awesome.
And some more flexible with good knees and good arms. So I would definitely. There's no reason why you'd have to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
If you get so strong that you're slowing down, then we'll talk. Or if you feel like the only way you're going to get faster is to become lighter or whatever.
That's I guess that's a whole conversation at that point. We have somebody in the gym that's she's in her 60s and she's just started strength training and she's got Boston coming.
Oh, okay.
And then we also have somebody else who is trained for Tokyo and has incorporated strength training, and she has said that she's feeling way better and stronger for it. So, I think there is a good balance for those two things. So, a couple other questions, or maybe one other question is, still got Boston in your mind?
I do.
You do?
I do. I mean, I signed up for the Napa Marathon, which is in March, so I've just got a few more weeks.
Is that a qualifier for Boston as well?
It can be, yeah.
It can
I
be.
think pretty much, I think any marathon that you pay to run, I think, has to have a certified course. So
Okay.
you have to track your time in a certain way, I'm guessing, or something like that. So I'm definitely not going to qualify with this run. This run really is to show me where I am from where I was, 12 years ago. So I think I've finished most of my marathons around the 350 mark, and I would be ecstatic if, like 12 years later, I could come back and hit 350 again.
Okay.
And I think that's really all I mean, obviously I would love I would love a miracle. I'd love a sports miracle, but I think I'm going to go in with realistic expectations that I'm keep 4 hours in mind, try to come in under 4, and then just see this again as this is part of the process. I'm going to trust in this long, slow, crazy process and see where I can get to.
So 2025?
Qualify 2025. That would be a good goal. That would be a good goal.
Definitely by 2026.
Well, I could also I'll get another break when I turn 55.
Oh.
So and that's 3 years. That's when the next time break comes.
Okay.
But we'll see. But it would be nice to qualify within maybe 2026. Yeah, within let's see.
Okay.
Let's see.
We're going to be cheering you on so that you qualify for Boston and make it to Boston. And I probably won't stop hounding you about it until you actually do. But I just want to thank you for coming out and speaking to us about your experience with low heart rate training. You certainly inspired me to do that low heart rate training. Just within, I think, just a few months of it, I tested it out just to see how long I could go before I gave up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went over 2.5 hours or something to that effect, and I got close like 13.5 miles, which is unheard of. I've done a half before, but it was not a full run. It was just run, walk.
Sure.
And so it blew my mind. And I'm incorporating with a lot of the my clients that I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because you brought it here, I think it's going to inspire a whole new group of runners. And we're looking for everybody that's listening that's watching this and, that are thinking about running to be able to actually start it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a fantastic thing that you've just shown all of us, and you're going to inspire a whole community here. So
great.
Thank you very much, Rob.
It was absolutely my pleasure. And it is a perfect way to start. It is a perfect way to start running because it's a pace. You will start at a pace that you could absolutely do for a long, long time.
Yep.
And it's it's odd to talk about like the athletic magic, and I was one of the more skeptical ones too. How could running so slow make you so fast? Yep. But it does.
It does.
It does.
Trust the process.
Trust the process.
Low heart rate training. Give it a shot. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks again, Rob. Thanks, everybody.